My father-in-law is a plastic surgeon and decided to join him in practice. And he was welcoming enough and gracious enough to take me on.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beauty in the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. Now, today's special guest is Dr. Joseph Hill. He's a board-certified plastic and reconstructive surgeon in a multi-surgeon private practice in Lexington, Kentucky, and he's been at it for the past 13 years. Now, Dr. Hill is a native Kentuckian. I didn't even know they called him that. Native Kentuckian, raised in Lexington, and focuses on aesthetic surgery of the eyelids, face and breast, body contouring following massive weight loss, as well as reconstruction of the breast following mastectomy for breast cancer. Now, all three surgeons in the practice give back their time and expertise to community organizations called Baby Health and Surgery on Sunday, which of course I have to ask about later. Dr. Hill, thank you so much for joining me on Beauty in the Biz. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's start with how you ended up there. So after residency, did you happen to do a fellowship?
I did not. I did a integrated residency where, we started off in general surgery and worked our way through plastic surgery.
Okay. And then how did you leave that and go to the next step, which is private practice?
I thought about doing a hand fellowship. I was interested in hand. My wife actually bought a house in Lexington, so it was either stay with her or go do a hand fellowship. And I decided to hang around town. And my father-in-law is a plastic surgeon and decided to join him in practice. And he was welcoming enough and gracious enough to take me on.
Wow. Okay. And so is he still on board?
He retired in 2015, about 3 years after I started. So he kind of helped me get going, and then kind of decided it was time to go.
So how was that? Working with family, there's always the pros and cons of that. How did that go? How did it work out?
From my perspective, it went really well. Being in the position I'm in now, having some experience under my belt, I can only imagine what it's like bringing on somewhat of an unknown quantity as your sort of junior partner, not knowing how they're going to be as a surgeon, and then the compounding factor being that you're now related to this person. So I just feel very grateful that he was willing to take me on, because that to me seems very anxiety provoking.
Really? Like, what if you had an issue with your wife? Does he get involved, or there has to be some drama there?
No, he's a pretty jovial person. We have a good relationship, and my wife and I had been married for years before I joined the practice. So we got married in medical school, so
Aw.
there was no concerns as far as that goes.
All right. Then in that case, he's gone, but you still have three surgeons. So who are the other two?
So I was friends with a lot of my co-residents. One in particular married a woman from Kentucky, was going to stay in Kentucky, and we just got to talking how it'd be great for us to join in practice. He's 3 years behind me, and so he joined our practice in, I believe, 2015. So the year my father-in-law retired, and then I have another partner who is actually the grandson of the originating partner, Dr. Andy Moore. So
Oh my God.
three partners. He's my wife's cousin.
Okay. So when you were there with your father-in-law, were you the only two surgeons?
No, his two other brothers were there as well.
Gotcha. When you joined, how did you join? As an associate, a contractor, a partner? What was your capacity?
No, I just joined. I think I had a couple months where I wasn't a partner, and then I became a partner, and it was eat what you kill. And
Mhm.
of course, my father-in-law helped me out. I mean, he kind of helped foot some bills here or there, and I paid him back. But you know, so I mean, I was right away a partner for the most part.
Wow. Okay, that is unusual. Usually, you have to pay your dues and prove yourself, but you had that connection. That was fantastic. And the
Yeah.
other two surgeons were okay with that.
Yes, I'd known them for a number of years, and I think that just being family, they were, willing to kind of sign up for that. The oldest brother retired shortly after I started. He went over to do part-time work at the VA, so he really wasn't around for more than just a couple months. And then the youngest brother in the practice, He stayed on until till his son joined the practice.
Okay, so then he exit, his son comes on board. Is this your friend that you've known and he's 3 years behind you?
No, that's my wife's cousin. So my friend is not related. My friend that joined the practice is not related to the practice at all.
Gotcha. Okay.
He's just a friend. He is a friend of both of like my wife's cousin and myself from residency.
Now, are you the owner?
My my friend partner and I are the owners.
Mhm.
My wife's cousin is currently employed by us, but is on a pathway trajectory to becoming a partner.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Wow, you have a complicated system going there. And now, is everyone doing cosmetic and recon, or what's the balance there?
So there's a need in our community to perform breast reconstruction. So that is 99% of the breast or of the reconstructive stuff we do in town. Everything else is aesthetic surgery, and because you're using implants and because the nature of what you're doing with breast reconstruction, it tends to work well with an aesthetic practice, in our opinion.
I would say normally I don't love if you're trying to grow your cosmetic revenues, I don't love um, including the recon because it takes you away from your focus. It's very difficult to focus on both. It takes a different staff, different expertise, different time responsibilities. It can just take away from the cosmetic side. Have you found that to be an issue or no?
I would agree with that statement for everything else in the reconstructive world besides breast reconstruction. I think breast reconstruction is additive to your aesthetic practice. I mean, I would say 50% of the patients end up doing something related to, aesthetic surgery, or they'll refer a friend or something to that effect for aesthetic surgery.
I completely agree with you. If I have to pick insurance, the only one I would pick is breast recon. Yeah.
And it's a rewarding thing to do for people, honestly, and it fills a gap in our community. So we like doing it.
Oh, speaking of the gap, what's the surgery on Sunday? What's that organization all about?
So my father-in-law started an organization towards the end of his career called Surgery on Sunday, and basically it was to fill in the gap between people who didn't qualify for government services like Medicaid because they were making too much money, but at the same time, insurance, private health insurance, was too expensive for them, and so they would go with these surgical problems like a hernia or lingering gallbladder problems forever, and no one could take care of it. And so that was the drive for him to start this organization. And he got a federal grant that basically absolves the nurses and the staff and the surgeons from any kind of liability by donating their time to performing these types of surgeries. So it's a really wonderful, thing to do. We're trying to spread it around the country. There's a couple places, Denver, Colorado, and Knoxville, Tennessee, that are trying to pick it up. Um, he was a CNN healthcare hero. He was a Muhammad Ali Kentuckian of the Year. So he's gotten a lot of recognition for his services. So he's just a wonderful guy.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I hope you keep that going. It's also very good PR for the practice, and to build your name recognition.
I will tell you this: we don't really, we don't push that as part of our practice. That's sort of a separate entity, and my father-in-law kind of runs it. So I don't want to act like we're using it to promote ourselves or anything like that.
Well, I think it's a great thing, especially for staff culture as well.
Oh, absolutely,
I
yeah,
think giving back and pro bono is absolutely mandatory in a big practice like yours with lots of players. It gives everyone that why, that we all need to stay motivated because otherwise,
absolutely,
we're all just capitalists, like going nowhere. So I just like the why part of that. Um,
yeah.
so tell me about the three surgeons working together. Usually, surgeons working together doesn't always go well. There are egos involved, there are different visions, there are different motivations, there are different drives you all have. How is that working out?
Yeah, and I see that play out in our practice too. I think we have a strong relationship amongst our partners. Obviously, one of them is somewhat family, um, but all those things that you just mentioned play out in our practice too. And we just sort of work through those issues and communicate well and kind of solve those problems.
Is it a it's not a dictatorship because you're both partners, so it has to be some kind of a democracy. So is it like 2 out of 3 wins, that kind of thing?
Well, again, honestly, I haven't thought about what we'll do when our employed physician becomes a partner. The way we've done it so far is we have to sort of be unanimous. So maybe we'll just kind of continue that, if there's a decision to be made. Um, as of right now, I think my partner and I kind of yin and yang well together. I tend to be more of a spender. He tends to be more of a, let's hold back a little bit. So I think in that regard, we sort of help each other out. I'll get him to spend some money in places, whereas other times he'll get me to hold back on buying that new laser or whatever that we don't need.
Hello there. Quick pause to ask you if you have gaps in your practice draining your time, profits, and peace of mind. If so, I can help you streamline, grow, and take the guesswork out of your practice. Book your practice growth strategy review at catherinemaley.com, and let's turn those gaps into growth. Now, back to the podcast. Well, when the third person arrives, the minute there's money in the game, and everyone's got their piece of the
Oh
pie,
yeah.
it just becomes more. You just have to get so much better at listening to each other. I would highly recommend meeting regularly. One thing I've noticed with surgeons, they'll let it bottle up, bottle up, bottle up, and then there's some kind of a blow up
Blow up.
of sort.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, if I was being honest, I mean, I think that that's happened from time to time, but our relationship is good, and so we've been able to work through that. And you know, you can't avoid those problems in a partnership. I mean, you're basically married to somebody. You know.
I mean, next to your marriage, that's the next big one, the
Yeah.
partner, the
Yeah.
business partner. So tell me about the staff. It looks like you have 10 to 12-ish people. A lot of
Mhm.
them, you have a lot of pregnancies there.
Yeah.
So it seems to vary, but how's that going?
It's going well. I think that we put a premium on quality, good staff, and so I think that to a certain extent, we're at the higher end of what people pay for those positions in our community. We've got some nurse injectors that have been wonderful additions to our practice, and I'm so happy that we started that process in about 2017.
Mm.
I don't know if you want to get into our shifting from a totally reconstructive practice to an aesthetic practice, but that was one of the major steps we took, was hiring a nurse injector.
Absolutely. Please talk about that because so many practices are still on that bridge going, should I go
Yeah.
over it or not? You know?
Yeah. I mean, we're still learning every day. So it's not like I figured everything out, but, you know, um, we, we made a move to a nicer office. We basically invested in ourselves. We put a lot of money up, put money down for a better office, hired a nurse injector. We didn't have a nurse. We didn't have a office manager. So we got an office manager. And then, speaking of need in the community, we recognized that no one was doing hair in our community, and so we bought a hair device, knee graft, and that turned out to be really fruitful for us because I think men would see that, they'd come and see us, and they tell their wives, "Hey, those are nice guys. Go see them." So it sort of spun off that a little bit.
I bet it also went the other way because a lot of times the women will bring their husbands and boyfriends in and uncles and brothers for hair.
For the
So,
hair, yeah.
uh,
Mhm. For sure.
all right. So one big thing you did was when you went cosmetic, you got a nurse injector and she started the non-surgical. Is that what
Yes,
happened?
and we started very slowly with that. She had a skincare background, so at first it was just skincare, and then she warmed up to the idea of Botox, and then gradually she kind of shifted to more of the total med spa package with with the injections and the lasers and all that goes on with that.
Mhm.
And then she got to the point where she was booking a month out, and we said, well, we got to get somebody else on. And so right now we have two. We had three, but now we have two. Probably will add another one. We have the space now. We've moved into our third location since I've been in practice, and we have the space for another injector as well.
How many square feet?
We moved from 5,000 to 10,000.
Whoa, that's a
And
jump.
we would love to have our own OR, honestly, but we're on the second floor and it doesn't meet code. So we'd have to convince the people on the first floor to let us use their space.
Well,
That's an expensive venture. And, I've got friends, I don't mean to take the interview over from you, but I've got friends in other communities who had to have their own OR because they were boxed out of the hospital. There's no surgery centers. In our community, I have plenty of places to operate and do aesthetic surgery. So I don't have that. absolute need to have my own OR.
Mm.
I know that it is more efficient for your practice, but it's a pretty expensive venture when you have ready access to operating rooms at reasonable prices.
You're in Kentucky, so maybe it makes sense. I just know most surgeons, it's the greatest thing they ever did. They love the efficiency. They love that they're not running around town trying to keep
Yeah.
up with everyone. They can do a lot more surgery now, and they can see post-op, a minute afterwards. So there's a lot of pros and cons to it, but you have to know what you're doing, and it has to be a big need, and you're not feeling it. You know when you'll feel it.
Yeah, my buddies in Charlotte and Columbia, South Carolina felt it.
Yeah.
I just haven't felt it yet.
Yeah. Well, you will someday. Yeah, don't worry
Yeah.
about it. Hey, any tips about hiring, like the nurse injectors? That's always been a big challenge, getting the right fit. Any tips on how you found the right ones?
Um, the 3 people that we have had in our practice have all come to us.
Mm,
Um, One of them has recently left, and we were sad about that. But the 2 that remained both came to us and said, "Hey, I want to do this." And we had known them either personally or professionally, and we thought it would be a good fit. So I don't know if I have great advice. I do know that that community tends to shift around a lot. The people that we have, I think, are somewhat loyal to us because we have more of a personal relationship with them than just hiring somebody randomly.
Did they bring a following with them?
One person, as a side business, was involved with makeup,
Hmm.
and I do believe that she is bringing people to the practice based on her prior sort of side business that she had when she was just a regular nurse.
Hmm. And are you training these nurses to do the injectables?
Yes.
And
So
that's a big pro for them then. That's a big benefit for you to be training them how to inject. Are you having them sign non-competes, or you're not involved in all that?
the most recent one we did, but I think we only did it for a year. I mean, it wasn't like we did it for an exhaustive period of time.
Hmm. It's difficult to hold them to it anyway, and, you know what I use it for? Strictly as, just a like a gate to see if they're willing to go through that. If they're willing to sign it, it just at least shows their intent, if they're
Interest.
not willing to sign it, that's a much bigger red flag, but,
Right. Yeah,
um,
that's a good point.
yeah, but I do like to bring somebody with a following just because it gets it going, because I don't love when somebody shows up and says, "Okay, bring me my patients." I
Yeah.
have you found that at all? Or are they good at looking around the community and trying to build themselves a following?
So the first person we hired had been in skincare at another facility and had
Mm,
somewhat of a following,
mhm,
but her personality was she has a big personality and she would just walk up to people in our waiting room and strike up a conversation. I mean, honestly, I think that's how she built most of her business. And I think more of it was her personality. We did have one person that has recently left us that kind of fits that description in the sense that, okay, I'm here, bring me patients, and
yeah,
it didn't seem to be working out.
mm.
So
Well, and just to identify that earlier rather than later, when it
yeah.
starts causing more trouble. Any motivating tips you're using for the staff? Because you've got a few staff there. Are you using any kind of incentives at all?
So for our nurse injectors, we do have a bonus structure, and then for all the staff, they do also have a bonus structure based on you know base. It's all related to aesthetic surgery, so the number of cases that are you know done basically.
Hmm.
It actually adds up to a lot of money for these people. I didn't realize how quickly it adds up.
Well, I don't know what your structure is, but paying on over productivity, you can't, that's priceless. If somebody will go above and beyond what is expected of them and they're paid to do that, I see nothing wrong with that. Because
Right.
if you have to keep somebody motivated, that I mean, you can use the carrot or the stick. Quite frankly, if you get the right people in there, number one, they love you in the practice. I mean, they just love this world anyway of aesthetic rejuvenation. But if you add that to it, they'll make that extra phone call, or they'll ask that extra question, or they'll present that extra skincare product or treatment. It's just, I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, okay, regarding marketing, which is, I love that topic, it looks like you're marketing as a practice. Is that true? Or do you all have your own individual websites and Instagram accounts?
We all have our individual Instagram accounts, but it's all funneled through the practice. So we market as a practice basically.
I think that's such a good idea. I work with so many practices that the doctors all are acting like they're solo practices within a practice. So they
Mhm.
all have their own websites. Plus, there's a practice website. Plus, there are all these individual Instagram accounts. It is so confusing for the marketing end of that. You don't look cohesive, when everyone's doing
Right.
their own thing. So, I mean, have you found, has it always been like that for you? Like everyone's always marketed as a practice?
Yeah, I mean, again, we started this. I mean, we started converting to an aesthetic practice around 2015, and it's always been like that. We tried a plethora of regional, national sort of marketing firms, and we actually went with one of the television stations here in town, and we were at Keeneland is a nice race course here in thoroughbred course here in town, and they took us to that. Track one day, and we were in this nice luxury suite, and we looked around, and we were with, Lexmark and Toyota, and then there was us, and we're like, oh my gosh, we're like way out of our league here. We must be paying way too much money. So we backed away from them, and we brought our own in-house marketer on board. And I'll
Yeah.
be honest with you, that's the best thing. One of the best things we've done in practice was bringing someone in-house that we could talk to and work with on a daily basis.
Although that is kinda cool. So were you at the Kentucky Derby in a booth?
No, yeah, Keeneland is in Lexington, and it's also thoroughbred racing, but it's not like the level. Well, they don't have the Kentucky Derby.
Okay.
They've had the Breeders' Cup there, and they have
Oh.
the Bluegrass Stakes there, which is a graded stakes race prior to the Derby, but
Mm.
it's not the Kentucky Derby race course.
And frankly, if you're promoting a local business such as yours, then it's very much emotional and it's a people business. I would probably just go local, just like you just did, get local marketing efforts. You don't need the whole world to know you're the host state. You need
Right,
like people who live around there who know other people who live around there. you
right.
know, I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
that's
truth be told, word of mouth is probably the best thing
totally,
marketing you could have, and I think everybody knows that. But
yeah.
that's been true in my practice too.
They know it, but then they still invest in all this other stuff. They can't I think surgeons can't help themselves. The minute they hear TV, it sounds like, "Ah, I'm gonna be a star." I think you do a lot more locally with word of mouth and just taking really good care of your patients who love to brag about you. It will always be the fastest, cheapest, easiest way if you can get
Yes.
talking.
And I think that's a lot of what we do. I mean, there's a competitor of mine in town that has a nice commercial. He's a really nice guy, good surgeon. And every time I see it, it's on the Today Show. Every time I see it, I'm like, I got to do that commercial. But the money is what holds me back, and we try to put our money more into our in-house marketing. Taking care of our patients, and Google ads and social media. That's kind of where we're at.
I have worked with quite a few who have radio spots. First of all, radio seems odd to me because we live in such a visual world, but also the TV or the cable ads. Here's my take on that in today's world. You can get so much more range for your buck going digital. However, either way you do that, when you go out to the masses like that, you're letting the whole world in your front door. And now you need staff to be able to triage who's really, really, really interested in this. You know, not just, "Oh, what do you guys do?" You know? Like,
Yeah,
there are quality leads and there are not quality leads, and so when you play that kinda game, you're literally trying to pick the gems out of that big pile, and,
right.
there you can do it that way. It's just I find that not to be the smartest approach to
And
marketing.
expensive. It's super expensive.
And time consuming and exhausting. I mean, haven't you been on a consult, many consults where they look at you like, "Oh, I don't know you. Who are you? I don't," and you're
Right,
like singing and dancing, and it's like, I don't need to do this. I don't want to do
right,
this. I want a
right.
referred patient who actually knows me and admires me and wants me to do their surgery.
It's an instant connection when somebody has been referred by a friend. I mean, it's instantaneous, and you can just sense it in the consultation.
Sure. What's the competitive nature in your area? I've been to Kentucky several times. I love Kentucky. It's so cute. The white picket fences, it's amazing. The horses
Yeah,
are amazing. Is it competitive there?
I would say I think it is. I don't know how much I want to go into that, but I think per capita we have a high number of plastic surgeons in our area,
Okay.
um, and I think that we have, in comparison to, say, a Charlotte, North Carolina, lower disposable income, if that
Mm,
makes sense to you.
yeah,
So that makes the competitive nature even worse.
gotcha.
I think Lexington is a nice place to live, and so I think people, and there's a university here, so people are drawn to our area to practice.
Hmm.
I will say I think competition drives better outcomes. So I'm not against competition. I try to not think about it and just kind of do my own thing. But competition, you're going to have competition no matter where you go.
Yeah, for sure. What about patient trends or tastes? Have you noticed them changing this past decade?
Um, the buttock augmentation, I think it bypassed Kentucky. I don't know if we see as much of that in our area as other communities do, and I think it has gotten less popular even here than it was, 5 to 10 years ago.
I know surgeons now who call it the mini BBL because it has such a connotation to it,
Yeah,
like the Miami, Florida
right.
BBL versus a Kentucky BBL. So they've added the word mini to it to try to tone it down
It's a good
because
idea.
you're right, it's still a needed, I mean, it's still a body part that people want to enhance if they can, but they don't want all of that.
I might use that actually.
Feel free. Yeah, you can thank me later. Okay. But have you noticed the patients getting younger or older, you know?
I do think that more men have come through my practice than my father-in-law's practice. I think that's definitely one thing that I've seen. And talking to my father-in-law, I think that's probably true. You
For
know,
hair?
definitely for the hair, but also for tummy tucks or gynecomastia. I think that in our community, people tend to shy away from promoting the fact that they've had anything done. But I think men are more open to having some of these treatments of if there's an area of their body or whatnot that's bothering them.
Well, now that you have the 10,000 square feet, do you happen to know who Grant Stevens is? Dr. Grant
Yes, I've
Stevens?
never met him, but I certainly know who he is.
Did you hear about his man cave?
I have not. No.
Yeah, he made a man cave for men because he loved the idea of catering to men, but they wanted a different experience than women. And he went all out on this thing. It was a quarter million, and it's got the brown leather and the cigars and the
Was it a separate facility or in the same facility?
in the same facility, but in a separate suite.
Gotcha.
And all I want to know is he got. Because when you know Dr. Stevens, though, he's all about PR. So I thought, okay, was this a PR play? Because are men really sitting in there? I
Right.
never did get a straight answer on that, but it was pretty cool. If you have
Yeah,
a
it's a
lot of
good
men,
idea.
yeah,
You got the money. I mean, it sounds like a good idea.
yeah, okay. So, what about? I know you're doing. What's your social media status? Are you busy on that? Are you just letting some marketing? Are you letting your marketing person handle it?
My marketer handles it all, and basically she'll create content and then we will run it through our own personal Instagram accounts if it's related to us.
Mhm. Well, I saw some of your Instagram. Are you spending much time on it yourself?
I really don't, to be honest with you. I probably should do more than I am. My marketer's always telling me to comment, to like things, and that's what drives, I guess, following. But I should do it more than I do.
I think you're going to have to. Just watching what's happening with SEO and AI, it's got to be authentic in today's world. And the only thing that is authentic, you're not even going to be authentic pretty soon because AI is going to be able to take your voice and your image and do crazy things with it. But yeah, the video and audio are just that's the only authentic that you have anymore. So I think it takes a lot more of you nowadays. Um,
Yeah,
to be in that. I would try to learn to embrace it. I'm trying as well. I think we have to.
yeah. I mean, I think you look at. I was like just a generation before social media kind of hit, and so I wasn't as experienced with it as like even my brother, who's 5 years younger than me. He was a lot more adept at it.
Yeah. Is he going to join the practice too?
No, he's not. Not in our world.
Alright, how about, photos, before and after photos? I've seen you've done a pretty good job getting before and after photos on the website, at least for body, a little face. Any tips on how you're getting consents from patients to either give you a video or do a video with you or give you a review or show their before and after photos on Instagram or your website. Any tip for that?
So I think we reward people for reviews. We reward people for video testimony. Um, as far as them giving us our pictures, letting us use their pictures for social media or the website, we simply just ask and they fill out a form. I think people who are breast and body tend to be more willing to allow us to use their pictures because their face isn't involved. People who, in our area of the country, people do not want people to know that they've had a facelift. I've heard it's different in other areas of the world. So for us to get someone to allow us to use their picture for a facelift is difficult.
Hmm. And when you say you reward them, just for the record, you're not giving them money. You're just rewarding in some way.
No, that is true. I mean, it's not monetary. It's more
Yeah.
like, have a skin treatment or something to that effect, on us. Thank you for your video testimony.
Yeah. But back to social media, that's another really great content. If you can interview a patient, you and the patient, the surgeon and the patient, then you're just asking them simple questions, or you're doing the nose reveal or the body reveal, and you're just getting their input. And you ask them, so what was your journey like? Or what was your recovery like? Or you do a patient journey of a patient. Oh my gosh, patients love that. And so
Yeah,
does Google, because again, it's authentic copy or content. If you can get that patient, you know what the secret is? Just keep asking until somebody says yes.
right. And that's what we do. We basically ask everybody.
Right. Yeah. Okay. What about a crazy patient or staff story you care to share?
Um, the one crazy pay I was thinking about this. I don't know if I've had any crazy patients in practice, but I did have a patient as a resident that got pecked by a rooster on the inside of his nose, and he got this massive nasopharyngeal infection, and it was really terrible for this person. But he ended up being a very nice guy, but he raised roosters to cockfight, and in Kentucky that was a thing. I don't know if it still is or not, but I never met a cockfighter before, and I don't think I ever will again. But that was probably the craziest thing I've taken care of.
Did it bite its nose off or it just went straight inside
No,
and
just a little peck, and the bacteria from the beak
oh my
caused an
god.
infection on the inside of the nose.
Okay, that's awful. All right, that's a and then tell us something interesting we don't know about you, and I'll just start you off. You married your high school sweetheart, and you have 3 kids.
We have three
Love, love,
kids.
love.
So we started dating towards the end of our high school careers, and then we were on and off throughout college. We went to separate colleges and had our own things going on, and but we just kept getting back together, and we enjoyed each other, and we eventually got married my second year in med school.
Oh, that's so it's just so unusual. I think that's fantastic, and you're still married. I'm gonna hope happily
We are still happily married. Yes.
because you came from the same world and you have the same values, and oh, I just love that. Are any of the kids showing any promise in following your footsteps?
I think my son, he's the oldest, and he's starting to think about his future. And I think just based on his family, he thinks he's got to go into medicine. We tell him go into what you want to go into. There's no pressure, but I think he feels that pressure to a certain extent.
Yeah. So any plans to scale this business or what are you going to do with those 10,000 square feet? Have you figured that out?
Yeah, I mean, I think we would like to add, potentially another nurse injector.
Mm,
Um, you know, I've always thought about scaling the med spa aspect of it.
mm.
Um, just hasn't come to fruition yet, but I think that that's one thing that we could scale is the med spa, and locate in different communities around Lexington, not necessarily in Lexington, Kentucky.
Kind of like as a satellite office that you can feed the surgery back to you?
That's what I envision.
Mhm. I would get going though, because if you have that idea, so do a lot of others, to start a med spa.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
And in Kentucky, I don't know how to. I know a couple states around the country. You have to be an MD to do injections, which is
Oh,
very profitable for the physicians. In our state, there's a med spa in every corner. I don't know exactly what the criteria is. I think you have to be a nurse to be an injector, but there's a med spa in every corner in our state.
Typically, you need to be a nurse, and then there's an MD running the show, and it's his professional liability that's on the line, and he has to be in contact with, all the rules change. I remember when I first got into this, New Jersey enforced the rules that the doctor had to do laser hair removal. And
Hmm.
I thought, oh, come on, that's a restraint of trade.
Yeah.
There is no surgeon who should be doing laser hair removal. And I don't know
Yeah.
if they changed that or not, but that's just not fair, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Anyway,
Spread it around.
right. Gosh. Dr. Hill, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, I know your website is plasticsurgeonsoflexington.com, right?
Yes.
Any other way, like Instagram or email or?
Yeah, I mean, we have an Instagram account, Plastic Surgeons of Lexington. Joe Hill MD is my Instagram, personal Instagram. I believe our Facebook account is also Plastic Surgeons of Lexington, and certainly email, is on our website. You can find my email on the website.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you
And
for having me. It's been
yeah,
fun.
and happy marriage,
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. And everyone, that's going to wrap it up for us today. If you would, please subscribe and give me a review at beautyinthebiz.com. And then if you've got any questions or feedback for me, please leave them on my website at catherinemaley.com. You can also sign up for a practice growth review session. I'll take a look at things and see what's working and what's not. Or you can always DM me on Instagram at Catherine Maley MBA. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon.
The fastest way to success is to model other successful surgeons who have what you want, but you can only see their results, not the path they took to get there. So you continue to jump from one thing to another, hoping to find something that will work for you too. But it rarely does. So try this shortcut instead. It's guaranteed to move you forward. I compiled my intellectual property to grow cosmetic revenues, everything I've gleaned over the years, into one playbook of the most successful practices and what they do to win. Go to cosmeticpracticevault.com and let's grow your cosmetic revenues.